Greetings, I am Erin Patton, metaphysical master in a millennial age, and it is my life's purpose to guide you and organizations along an enlightened path. So I invite you to sit comfortably and tune in as I welcome you to the MetaBusiness Millennial, where we get the real conversations you won't get in the boardroom so that we understand this is exactly the path we need to be on in order to grow, evolve, and thrive. Greetings, I am Erin Patton, also known as Master L, and welcome to today's live episode of the MetaBusiness Millennial podcast. We are live across all social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and YouTube. And I encourage you all, if you haven't already, to subscribe to my channel, follow me at I am Erin Patton, and of course, leave me a comment, shoot me a DM, let me know how this resonates with you. Of course, leave a reviews, 5 stars. And I just love to hear from you guys because the engagement here has been really great. I've been learning so much about you all through this podcast, learning so much about myself, of course, through this podcast. And today's podcast is really special because I've titled it Sovereign Leadership. And I say we because I've invited a guest to join. So hopefully the guest can be able to join us a little bit later. And I've called it Sovereign Leadership for a few reasons. And I want to start first with something that I learned recently about myself. I know that my name, Erin, is a Gaelic name, an ancient Gaelic name. And I didn't really know much else about the name Erin. And when I say ancient Gaelic, actually, the name Ireland is named Erin is the name of Ireland. And let me break that down for you because I just got the breakdown myself recently and it's very relevant to this topic. So that's why I wanted to bring it up. But Erin derives from the ancient Gaelic goddess named Eru. And Eru was the goddess of sovereignty. And she represented essentially the land of Ireland. So it was called Eruland or Ireland. And that's how Ireland got its name. And it's actually one of 2 countries in the world that's actually named after a goddess or a feminine deity or feminine entity. And that to me was just really mind-blowing that, and also really, it just makes sense. Yeah, okay. It makes sense too that that's who I am. Like that's what I'm named after, a sovereign goddess, and that's exactly what I embody. And so I just wanted to start with that because that was such an awakening learning about myself, and it really aligns with who I am, where I'm going, my purpose, what I'm teaching you about sovereignty, and sovereignty specifically in leadership. And let's take a step back now that I've kind of grounded us into the inspiration for today's topic. Then I want to really start to define sovereignty, and we'll continue to define that and explore that over the course of today's podcast. And I just wanted to say that sovereignty in and of itself represents individuality. It represents a freedom and a knowing of self. And I know I always talk about this knowing of self, and you have to know yourself and know yourself, know thyself. But the sovereignty piece is critical in this day and time when we're going through a very hyper-political environment, when we're giving money towards leaders and people who we want to offload our problems to solve for us. And essentially, that's just not how the world has ever worked, to be honest. But we've been conditioned to buy into this program, if you will, of operation, or this mode of operating. And it's obviously not working. I mean, I did a post recently around the polling of Americans and how so many Americans, majority of Americans, really feel like leadership is failing, and so I really just want to continue to encourage us and inspire us to move in a more sovereign manner. And we'll continue to explore what sovereignty means. And right now, let's just do it right now. Because when I talk about sovereignty for me specifically, and now that I know that I'm a goddess of sovereignty and what that means for me, then the sovereignty really reflects, like I said before, a freedom and also an accountability to self. And when I think about the freedom piece, I just want to really start to dig into that, because this is actually what's going to bring in our guest today, show around that freedom, is the freedom of expression, the freedom of being in my truth, not being bound by limiting beliefs, not being bound by other people's beliefs, and really answering to myself. Like, there's really no wrong that I can actually do because I'm walking in my own truth. And the only accountability that I do have is to myself and to God. And it's so funny because I remember when I was, excuse me, I have a little bit of sniffles today, but I remember when I was really young, I was a huge Tupac fan. And Tupac had this album and song called Only God Can Judge Me. And it's something that we widely say or know, particularly coming from a Christian background. Yet at the end of the day, there's nothing more sovereign than that statement. And to be honest, God doesn't even judge. So, so there's even more freedom in that sovereignty of knowing that I only have to answer to God. And this also starts to ruffle a little feathers or make a lot of people uncomfortable, especially people that are really new to spiritual path or the metaphysical path, because we're so used to judging people. We're so used to right and wrong. We're so used to things being deemed evil and good, when at the end of the day, everybody is on a learning journey back towards God. And whether you're a murderer or, or philanthropist, at the end of the day, these are all lessons that you have to learn in order to make your way back to God. And so that essentially is the sovereign journey, is understanding that you answer to no one but yourself and to God. And that sort of makes life even more challenging, because it begs the question, then what do I want? What do you want? What's good for me? What's right for me? Because we've so much been given laws and rules and scripts and boundaries by other people, particularly in this country, when we're thinking about like being a Democrat or Republican and what we have to believe about abortion, or what we have to believe about sex change, and what we have to believe about all these random things that don't even really, shouldn't even matter, to be honest. Like, these are individual decisions. What we should be thinking about, if anything, is what matters to the collective. Essentially, like our safety, our security, our education, our transportation, natural disasters and how they can just wipe out a town in a matter of hours. Why aren't these conversations that we're having as a collective? And so this is essentially the difference between living a sovereign life versus what we're experiencing now in this hyper controlling, mind controlling environment that we live in, called, the United States of America, in my view. And so, of course, this is a criticism of our society, because we got to do better. And I've withheld sort of my criticism for so long, because I just, always was about like, well, let's be positive, let's, blah, blah, blah. But at the end of the day, we have to start just saying how we feel and speaking our truth. And this is what's coming up for me right now, is just seeing so many people fall into line, doing the voting thing, doing the things that they think are right, but actually have little to no impact on their lives or anybody else's lives for that matter. and and here's a comment here that, I've been saying this for years, that the United States is leading us towards a communist dictatorship. I don't know where it's leading us to, but it's definitely not in service to humanity. Let's just put it that way. When we're seeing more people in debt, when we're seeing more people in poverty, when we're seeing more violence, more crime, more depression, more suicide, it's leading us somewhere where we don't want to go. I don't know what you can title that, or what the new political, frame for that would be. I don't actually give a fuck. At the end of the day, we're wanting to do what benefits the collective, what benefits human beings, divine beings in human form, what actually serves the highest good for us in our lives. This is never a topic of conversation, actually, when we're getting into it around politics. It's always pointing fingers, blaming, calling somebody this, that, though, but it's literally just entertainment. And so, the polarization is super epic here, because when you can divide, you can conquer. That's why the polarization is necessary. And that's why the separation is necessary. And I think this is a really great segue to introduce our today's guest. So, Shaud, are you there? I'm going to add you to the stage. You're hearing me in my little rant here.
Oh yeah, this is a great time for me to come in.
So everyone, welcome Shaud to the show. I am so honored to have you here, because let me just give you the background on why I invited him. Because when I started talking about particularly Blackness, dismantling Blackness as it related to sovereignty and limiting beliefs, and what we're seeing particularly in the mind control of our country, he really deeply resonated with you.
Yeah.
And so let me just have you just jump on in, and then we can get into more of the introductions of who you are and all that a little bit later, because since we're already in the thick of it.
We're already into into the thick of it.
Yes.
I'm honored to be here. First and foremost, I appreciate you, Aaron, for inviting me. And yeah, like you said, a lot of the topics that you were taking on, and as of recent, and I would see them come down my timeline at first, and then after a while, I started making a conscious effort to go see every Monday exactly what you were talking about. And I was like, man, these are the types of conversations that need to be had, not only within our community, but for people on the outside to see us having these conversations,
Yeah.
because they are very important. I think they are the backbone to us getting our sovereignty, being able to be people that rises up, because everybody says, oh man, we control the culture, we're so creative, we do this, that, and so well, but we're the only ones that are still behind, that have not gotten our just due, that don't work together like we should.
Yeah.
And I think it's because of the lack of communication. It's obviously some other factors too, but I think that's the main thing.
Yes. And I just want to kind of continue to build on that, particularly the piece around being behind.
Yeah.
And this is what I started to allude to when I talked about my own limiting beliefs about achieving wealth in my own personal life, was that this color of my skin, me identifying as Black, actually created like harsh boundaries on my mindset. And I have to also add to the political landscape,
Yeah.
and the Democratic Party and their stronghold on the Black mindset,
Mm-hmm.
and their just I would say almost lazy approach to expecting that all Black people should vote Democrat,
Yeah.
and not even offering in my view any solutions, any support, any strategy around Black people doing the things that they need to do to get ahead. And it as much as I would to think about what a political party should do for government, it would be around creating strategy. Like I went to policy school, like I went to
Yeah.
the Harvard Kennedy School of Government, where we actually spent a lot of time working on policy and creating strategies to impact economic behavior and people's behaviors. And there doesn't seem to be any of those conversations at all in the political landscape. Let me just put it that way. And when you talk about being behind, this is a very intentional design.
Yeah.
And I don't want to point fingers and say who did it, because at the end of the day, we're all complicit. Like
Mm-hmm.
somebody designed it, yet somebody had to agree to this design and step into it. And many of
Exactly.
us Black people have. So
Yeah.
yeah,
And it's unfortunate that it has been done purposefully, but at the same time we have allowed it to go on for this long. You know, fool me once, shame on you; fool me twice, shame on me. It's like at a certain point as a people we got to realize that no one's coming to save us.
that part.
It's going to be us. We have the most creative ideas. We are the most educated in the country right now. We have the most amount of money. I forgot the exact figure. I want to say it's in the billions or trillions.
Our
As far
spending.
as there you go. And we are so. With that being said, we should not be facing the things that we are facing, which lets me know that what you said was true. We are at some kind of way playing into the trap.
Yeah. And
It's
I wanted to specifically bring you in on this show because I wanted to talk about your own personal journey.
mm-hmm.
Obviously, I'm a woman in this pursuit, so it's a different perspective. But as a
Yeah.
man, what inspired you to start opening yourself up to thinking differently about your Blackness and becoming more critical even of what you were experiencing in Black culture?
It was a litany of things. The most important piece was probably me coming into my own, maybe at probably about 21, 22 years of age, and saying to myself, okay, a lot of the things that I've been, conditioned and taught and passed down are the world's changing. Things are evolving. It's difficult for me to keep the same mindset, but at the same time, in order to know where I'm going, I need to know where I come from. So, I started to research history and understand the difference between, indigenous and African, and really deep diving into my family's personal tree, and understanding that, oh, okay, just because you're Black doesn't mean everyone was over here, shipped over here on a boat. Some people were already here. A
That
lot of
part.
us, I can't even say some, a lot of us,
Yeah, my
what,
family was, and I can talk about that.
yeah, was already here. And so that was the beginning of it. And then honestly, just living day-to-day life as a Black man, and understanding, like, the little subtle intricacies that you kind of normalize aren't so normal. You should not walk into a store and be followed down the aisles. You should not be pulled over and everything be legit and you still be fearful of your life. You should not go to a place that's outside of your neighborhood and feel out of place. It's just little small things that I thought was normal. I got older and grown and said to myself, wait a minute, these things aren't okay.
I agree. And I'm so glad you brought that up because, frankly, as a woman, I haven't had those experiences.
Yeah.
And I really don't even have words for what that feels like or could feel like, because I hear it so much from men of color, particularly Black men. Like I have a friend and he's like, Aaron, do you know how much I get pulled over? Like,
Man.
and he just said it like, like it's an everyday thing, but I'm just
Yeah.
like, no, like I never get pulled over. You know what I'm saying? Like, so I have
Yeah.
no idea, and so I honestly can't even begin to compute that experience of fear, of
Hmm.
constant fear, of targeted fear. And I remember actually when I had my son, and it was kind of during like the Black Lives Matter, like he was a COVID baby, so that was the
Yeah.
height of the BLM movement. Um, that they were like, "Oh, Aaron, how do you feel about having a Black boy at this time?" Well, I was like, first of all, like my son's not gonna ever have like subscribe to this mentality of, you know, being less than or subject to violence, and you know the energy that that holds.
Yeah.
And so just in that, he will, in my view, won't even attract those kinds of experiences.
Yeah.
But because you had already bought into what it meant to be a Black man, then you are vibrating at that frequency of
Yeah.
fear to
Mhm.
attract those fear-based experiences.
Yeah.
And so it's almost like you got set up, you know
Yeah.
what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so you know, I really am hopeful that we can continue to talk through this in this podcast, not just today, but just in general as a
Yeah.
culture, because so much of who we are and what we have experienced in our lives is because of what we have chosen to, the frequency we've chosen to operate at. And I
Mhm.
want to get into the metaphysical aspect of it because I talked about it a little bit last week when I went through the chakras and I described it as the energy wheels and how we can literally shift our vibration. And you were talking to that when you started to open up yourself, then
Yeah.
the nature of your experience start to change. Same for
Yes.
me. The nature of my
Mhm.
experiences started to shift when I no longer started to align to, oh damn, she don't like me because I'm Black, or they don't want to talk to me because I'm Black. You know, when I started to not just put those thoughts out of my head, because that's one thing to like just not think about it. You
Mhm.
know, when the energy still lives there, you
Right.
can't bury these emotions. You can't ignore your vibrational frequency. It's gonna always exist there, even if you're not thinking about it. So I want to help to provide some teaching and learning and understanding around that. Just
Yeah.
because you're not thinking about the color of your skin or on a conscious basis does not mean that it's not necessarily impacting you. So it's really important that you work through the emotional fears that are attached to said Blackness and or any other limiting belief or fear that you have in your life. And so and what that looks like is in many cases journaling about it. Like I had to like walk through this, talking it out, like not just talk therapy, but like energy therapy,
Mhm.
talking through my Blackness and why I see why I'm treated certain ways by the Black community, why I'm treated certain ways by my Black friends, my Black family, you
Mhm.
know, and really crying, you know, starting to explore other cultures. Like these are actually things that I did to really start to awaken myself beyond the Blackness.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it seems like some of this resonates with you.
Yeah, a lot of the things that you're saying, I did too. Like I was alluding to earlier, started to kind of research my own culture, and then also mix in and experience other cultures. Getting out is a big part. Like not staying in the place that you have always grown up, going in and not staying in the state or the country all the time that you've grown up in, going and seeing other cultures and
Yes,
realizing, wait a
yes,
minute, this is this world is a lot broader than my
yes,
perspective.
yes,
And seeing how they do things, and also yoga, meditation did a lot for me.
yes,
Honestly, psychedelics, plant-based medicines did a lot
yes,
for me to broaden
yes,
my perspective and expand my horizon, to really just understand that, like you were saying earlier, a lot of the conditions that were placed on me were limiting me, and it's hard to see the forest from the trees. You have to expand your horizon. You have to get out. It's just like an athlete that has the advantage of going back and watching film. Well, when you're in that game, you don't have that advantage. When you're in the middle of the game, it's very difficult to say, wait a minute, the defense is playing me this way. You don't have that amount of time. You don't have that amount of foresight. However, when you do, once you get back in the game, it's a lot different. You start to recognize patterns you would not have recognized
I
initially.
love that. I love that. I love that sort of like I guess analogy of how you can go back and watch. And actually, this is a metaphysical technique called taking the observer's mind.
Mm-hmm.
And when you start to, for lack of better words, step outside of yourself
Mm-hmm.
and see yourself as separate from yourself,
Mm-hmm.
then you can start detached more and more from these identifiers, these boundaries, and these boxes.
Yeah.
And as you start to take on more of that observer's mind and see, like, playback film, damn, like, look how I reacted in that scenario where that person called me the N word. Like, why would I even attach my identity to that when that doesn't even describe who I am? You know
Right.
what I'm saying? So it's just like, why am I even so triggered by that when I say it all the time myself?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so you have to really start to ask yourself these silly ass questions. They may seem like, but they're actually the steps, if you will. When I talked about the sovereign steps to leadership, these are the baby steps that you take to really start to unlock your sovereignty.
Yeah.
And I love this comment. I just want to acknowledge it, that it says, um, particularly probably speaking to our separation and our division, it really keeps us in our fear, keeps us in fight or flight mode. Like, we
Yeah.
don't belong anywhere and you're never at peace. You're always out of place, because
Mm-hmm.
that's exactly what it feels like to be insecure.
Yeah.
And the insecure stems from our root chakra, like our root energy. And I talked about this a little bit last week, and how we get grounded actually is the fundamental step before we can even ascend in our evolutionary journey.
Yeah.
And so what we're talking about today is so necessary, not just for Black people, but for all people, because I already know a lot of people are learning from this Black conversation, because people can see it in other aspects of their lives so clearly, that when we're insecure, when we're in fight or flight mode, when we're in constant fear, it is impossible to walk a evolutionary journey,
Right. Right.
because you have to be, on guard.
Mm-hmm.
And that's essentially the state of the world that we're in, not just the country, it's the state of the world. And I even, like, when I was watching back the rally in Houston, there were like people fighting. I saw they were trying to take somebody out. They were yelling and screaming. They do this at all the rallies.
Yeah.
Like, there's never any community anywhere, and so particularly in this current structure. So that's why the sovereign piece is so key. And so you're saying, yeah, like, what here is starting to resonate with you?
Yeah. I think that, like you were saying, if they can, and everything these days is pretty much designed to keep you in a state of fear. You turn on the TV, you turn on, so you get on social media, you hear the radio, you stream your shows on your different channels, and Netflix and Disney Plus and all of this, and a lot of these images and sounds that you're intaking are all fear-based. They're all things that are playing on the very things that all of us fear: losing family, not having enough, all the things that the average person does not want. And so if they keep you in that state of mind, not only in your regular life, but in the images and all of the entertainment things that you um intake, it's very difficult for you to consciously or subconsciously break free from that. And the subconscious is so much stronger than that. So a lot of the times when you're watching these shows or listening to these songs, or intaking anything in the form of entertainment, a lot of times it's doing more than you realize. A lot of, how many times have you watched something and then went to sleep and dreamed about it?
Yes.
So it's so important for you to not only make those changes in your life, but in the things that you intake also. I know so many people who did the work on themselves, but they would still intake things that were not of the vibration that they were on, and it would show up in their real life.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
so I think not only is it necessary to evolve and to better yourself and do the healing work, but you also have to do the same thing in the things that you intake and the people that you surround yourself with.
100%. And we spoke about this before in previous episodes around the music. I call them deadly lyrics in hip
Mm-hmm.
hop.
Mm-hmm.
The toxic culture of hip hop and
Yeah.
how it's being played out with the current situation with Diddy and how he's been going under for all
Yeah.
his shenanigans.
Mm-hmm.
And there's more. I mean, there's movies, there's food, there's fast fashion. I mean,
Yeah.
there's chemtrails.
Mm-hmm.
Everywhere we're exposed to toxicity. Let's just
Yeah.
be clear about that.
Mm-hmm.
And we can't run away from the world. Like
No.
we decided to come to this planet, and we knew it was toxic as fuck, but we knew that we also could ascend and make it through.
Right.
So it's all about what we're talking here. Me and Shaud are talking about are our choices, and choosing to get curious around what do I believe, what do I accept as true, and continually questioning it. And I feel like that's the piece where you were talking about in terms of just like um, particularly asking yourself, where do I come from? And I
Right.
wanted to
Right.
speak to this as
Yeah.
well because when I started my spiritual journey, I actually started studying with um, Dr. Phil Valentine and his University of Communication Sciences because I was
Love Phil
so
Valentine.
aligned. Yeah, I was so aligned with Black consciousness that
Mm-hmm.
I thought that my teacher had to look like me. And I'm so glad that I started there because he was the one that really started to awaken me um, to to the fact that not only we're sovereign here in the U.S., but the sovereignty was attainable. But he was speaking of it more from like a legalese perspective.
Mm-hmm.
But that put something on my consciousness that really started to awaken me, obviously, to my divine lineage as well, which is a
Yeah.
whole other conversation. But in terms of my earthly lineage, I knew this from a child that my family is Creole, that my family also were Choctaw Indians, but
Mm-hmm.
we did not receive the Choctaw designation. Now I know for obvious reasons because of the denial of so many indigenous people. Like it was to actually strip us of our sovereign indigenous rights,
Yeah.
so that we can become victims of this black white racist society.
Yeah.
But my family were Choctaw Indians, and the Choctaws are the part of the original 12 tribes here in the U.S. So we know about the 12 tribes in the Bible, but they existed also in this side of the planet as well. And just like you can probably see facts in like the early 20th century how the Smithsonian found pyramids, in I believe it was like Arizona or something like that, like or other parts of the US, like a lot of even these beautiful elaborate buildings were already built here before, colonialism. So there is lots of evidence that points to indigenous people having very sophisticated civilizations here
Yeah.
pre-slavery, and people not just being uh, Indians with tomahawks and like whatever
Right.
like there were very sophisticated cultures here, mixed cultures, black cultures, uh, all kinds of cultures. And it turns out that my family actually was one of those tribes. And so that's why for me, it was really easy to start to disassociate myself from the slavery rhetoric, from the rhetoric around not having ownership of anything, because I knew that even just as Creoles in Louisiana, my family had their own settlement called the Reno settlement. So we owned land, we had our own schools, and even my family here in Cleveland, Texas, my dad's side had the same thing. So a lot of actually what I was learning in school did not align with what I was learning from my own family history, which
Yeah.
was just a couple generations. And so it really awakened me to start to question a lot around what this blackness means and the limitations around it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think a lot of what they drill in your head in school, like you say, is to keep you in that the societal black and white, the there's no gray area, it's either this or it's that. And a lot of us buy into it, especially
Yeah.
you had the advantage of knowing the difference, but a lot of us don't. A lot of us do not have our lineage and know where we come from, and so you're looking for something, and that's the first thing that's presented to you at the age where you're still a sponge.
Yeah.
And so most people buy into that, and you grow up with that. And even as an adult, I've started to learn in my spiritual journey that evolving and ascending and just bettering yourself, yeah, it has a lot of learning, but the main part is the unlearning.
Yes.
And to be able to go back and undo those things, it takes a lot of work, because again, that was given to you at a sponge age. You grew up with it. You subconsciously went with it without even questioning it.
Yes.
And
Yes.
so yeah, I'm trying to, do that. That's a continual thing. Even when healing never stops. You get to a certain point where you notice the progress and you've gotten better, but again, a lot of those things keep coming up. They continue to come up, and it's your job to stay on it.
I love that you brought up the unlearning, because I don't think I've ever actually spoke to that on the podcast, and
Mm,
the power of the unlearning.
mm-hmm.
Because I do speak to the questioning to enable you to start seeing, like, okay, like, is this me? Are these my thoughts? Is this my thinking? Does this align with me?
Yeah,
And then what do I need to let go? And that's what the unlearning actually means. Like, once you've gotten curious about if it's your race limitation, or your money limitation, or your immigrant status, or whatever it is for you, um, beginning to see that, okay, this doesn't align with me or what I'm thinking or where I'm going. So I think I need to let it go. It no longer serves me. Thank you, but I
yeah,
can let it go.
yeah,
And that actually is a very good practice around a release. Like, there's so many release meditations out of there. And I know there's different schools of thought around even the practice of releasing,
mm-hmm.
um, because everything is ours to learn from. Some things we keep and some things we detach from,
Right,
we can let go. And that's a very different from just shoving it under the rug or
yeah,
ignoring it, or just keeping it a secret. However, when you're doing that sort of unlearning and understanding, like, these thoughts, these mindsets, these behaviors no longer serve me, then it's time to let it go.
yeah, yeah. I think in anything that you were taught, because a lot of these things that we were taught, whether it was in school, whether it was from family, whether you saw it in a book with literature when you were coming up, a lot of these things have good elements to them, and then there are other parts of them. So you kind of want to, trim the fat, keep the meat type thing. Like, everything has something that you can learn from in it. It is up to you to understand what resonates with you and your personal journey, and what needs to not be dissected, digested, and kept. And so
Yes,
what I have learned is that some of the stuff that I resent now, it's not the entirety of it or the whole idea of it. It's
yes,
certain aspects of it.
I love that.
Because again, there's certain things I learned in school that I still take with me today. And there's certain things that I had to do away with. There's certain things that I learned in church that I take with me to this day. Certain things that I had to no longer subscribe to. So again, I think it's all about where you are and where you're headed, and knowing what aligns with your personal frequency and what does not.
Yes. I love the trim the fat sort of recommendation,
Yeah.
because as you're unlearning, I'm not suggesting that we throw it all away.
There you go.
When I talked
Yeah.
about dismantling Blackness, like, obviously, like, the Black culture is going to exist for a while. Like, we
For a
can't just
while. Yeah.
throw it away. Yet there are aspects of it. When I say dismantle means to just take apart.
Take apart. Mm-hmm.
And so as we're taking it apart, like, what pieces do we donate? What pieces do we trash? What pieces do we keep and cherish?
Mm-hmm.
What pieces do we sell because they're valuable?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's just like, come on now. Like, we have to begin to really, when you say unpack, unlearn all of these aspects of ourselves, our genders, our race, our sexuality, everything that's been trying to be placed on us as as I mean, I can't even begin with how much government and conversations are just all in our bedrooms. They all
Yes.
under our bed sheets. You know
Yes.
what I'm saying? They all in our toilets. You know what I'm saying? Our
Uh-huh.
underwear. Like, like these are my private parts. These are my private spaces.
Yeah.
That everything has been politicized and capitalized.
Yeah. It's almost like it's all being monetized or put in a category for their understanding, and these are a lot of these things aren't even physical. You're putting like monetary value on abstract things.
Yeah. And give us an example about what you mean by that.
What I mean by that is, as far as a people, like you were saying, everything that comes with us, they look at either dollar signs or a way to control it. So I'm saying, even for women, abortion rights, your educational rights, your ability. But when I say abstract things, I'm saying even our blackness, even our ability to be able to grab ideas out of the universe and put them into physical form is being monetized. Even our ability to think forward, you're, as a woman and just as a black person, your intuition, your gut feelings, all of that, all of the things that we have been blessed with and have innate abilities to do, they are monetizing. Our music used to be cultural, spiritual. It wasn't for sale. It was for
Yeah.
tribal and
Yeah.
healing ceremonies. This has all been reduced down to $1 now.
Oh my God. And this actually aligns with a comment that just came up around the term woke has now been like completely monetized.
That too.
And it's interesting that you bring up this piece around the spirituality being monetized, because obviously I've been doing this work now for 4 years, almost exactly when I launched in November 2020.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think I was the only person talking about spirituality.
No.
Yeah, I was definitely one of the only people talking about spirituality, metaphysics,
Yeah.
business. And now, honestly, I can't. Everyone's talking about energy and abundance, and
Uh-huh.
everyone's a spiritualist now
Mm-hmm.
overnight. And no shade to people on their evolutionary journeys, because this is what's needed in this day and time. Don't they?
Yes.
Nothing wrong with it. Yeah, at the end of the day, like there has to be a leveling of the field,
Yeah.
and what actually can be monetized, to your point, versus accepted just as it is. And I actually wrote down in my journal yesterday, because one of I'm a life path 8, so that means I'm meant to master money, master finances. So what I'm doing now as a wealth advisor and a wealth teacher is strictly aligned. And the wealth embodiment is sort of like the next level for me, where I'm really embodying it and taking it to the next level. Like I have like now I have something in the pipeline around the trillionaire idea that I always speak to, like all of us should be trillionaires.
Mm-hmm.
And what I wrote down is my desire to help refine and redefine money, because we absolutely need tools of communication. Essentially is kind of how me and my mentors describe money, because we have to communicate value for
Yeah.
someone's energy, which is completely, acceptable. Yet when it comes to being used as a tool of manipulation, or as a tool of all the things that have been associated with evil, if you will, that money has now taken the role of, it has completely lost its value,
Yeah.
and has corrupted and perverted much of the world. And so, just a personal sharing, like I wrote down in my journal around how I really want to be part of the leadership that helps to refine and redefine what money is to our society, because we need to be able to work with each other, to exchange with each other, to learn from each other, to compensate each other, to grow with each other in a way that is energetically reciprocal.
Yeah.
And money right now is the most advanced tool that we have, but obviously it can evolve.
Mm-hmm.
But I just had to bring that up because, we've talked about monetary value can't be put onto everything, but
Yeah.
goddamn, it has been.
It
And,
has been.
and not only and because of that, then it can get politicized because, of course, government is created to support and control business.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And I just like a personal journey of my own. I am, as far as spirituality goes, I was very, and still am, but to a larger degree, involved in a lot of the crystal and crystal jewelry scene in Houston. And like you said, like about 4 or 5 years ago, that was like a very small community. It was very small. I
Yeah.
was I was one of the staples. And then COVID hit, and all of these people had time to sit with themselves for the first time in our adulthood. And my business started to boom. Boom. I was making more money off of my crystals and crystal jewelry than I had ever had. And at a certain point, I had to look up, and like we were speaking on earlier, take the observer's approach and stop and put the pause on it and review the film and say, hold on, okay, I'm getting a lot of money right now, and there's a lot of people coming to themselves and exploring their spirituality, which is great. However, some of these people are going to wear this just because it's a fashion piece, just because
Oh,
it looks good, just
yep.
because it's shiny, and they're not actually of this ilk. They just are riding the wave. Like you say, it's been monetized. The woke community, the whole movement has been monetized. So I said to myself, I may have to, even though it's good right now, understand that all money isn't good money.
Huh. Whew.
And
Whew.
I had to have some quality control. So I stopped putting my stuff on Etsy. I stopped advertising it on my social media, and it became almost a luxury car type of thing. There were no commercials. There were no, if you didn't hear about me from word of mouth, or if nobody referred you, I had to stop allowing you to, because the amount of energy and amount of time and just the overall quality of the stones I was bringing in, if you didn't know what to do, if you don't know how to properly cleanse, if you don't know what stones you should wear with other ones, these aren't for you, because they're powerful. They do things, and they can align you and the things around you. They also can absorb energy from the things around you. So if you're not properly charging, cleansing, you really shouldn't have these. And so I took a pay cut, and I started to only sell to people that I knew were of a spiritual echelon.
Hmm.
And the crazy part is my money didn't get any different. It's just I was more satisfied with the people and the way that I was doing things. It started to align more with me personally, because I
Yeah.
wasn't so gimme, advertise,
Yeah.
anybody.
I
It
love that.
started to be even with me no longer advertising, my money didn't really go down. Just the quality of my customer started to really be where I wanted it to be. And so I say that to tell everyone, like, you don't have to do things that don't align with who you are for money. You may have to take an initial hit. You may have to hold back on some spending. You may have to budget, but in the long run, it will benefit you greatly to be more mindful of what you're doing and make sure that it aligns with who you are as a person and your frequency and your morals and values.
Yes. Oh my God. Thank you so much for this. And it's really resonating over here on Instagram. I just have to tell you that someone was like, bars, my money didn't get any different.
Come on.
So
Come on.
you should add that to your next songs.
Yeah. I'm
Um,
gonna have to put
but
that in there.
I need to make some commentary on this because this is why this podcast is called the Meta Business Millennial Podcast.
Yeah.
Because this is exactly what business leaders need to hear. And this is actually where the nature of my work and my teachings is going, is around what I call the wealth multiplier. And what Shaud has just so beautifully articulated in his narrative was around, he was making money in his business, doing something that he was really passionate about. It's a widget for now. And then as the business was growing and accelerating, because people became more, enamored by this widget that was really sacred for him, he realized that he was, in many ways, stepping out of his purpose and selling this widget because of the intentions of the people he was selling to and what they were doing with the widget, or how they were mishandling it, for lack of better words. And so he had to assess himself. He at first articulated it as a pay cut, but then realized when he took the step back that actually the quality of his life, not only did it not change, but it got better because he aligned even more in his purpose in selling that said widget. And that essentially is what the journey of what I call the meta business leader looks like, in that the wealth multiplier is this kind of like abstract, concept for now as I continue to refine it. Yet when we're in business, there are aspects of our work that can actually add unto our quality of life and or subtract from our quality of life, despite what the money is doing.
Yeah.
And so that's why when she said my money didn't get any different, actually his money did change.
Yeah.
But the quality of his life, the quality of his customer, the quality of his product, the holistic view of the wealth improved. So then what is the wealth then? It's not the money.
It's not the money. Yeah.
And so this is essentially the basis for the wealth multiplier that I'm going to continue to build on and have data for, and it's going to be my life's work. But I want for us to start grounding in what this means when you are an enlightened leader, a meta business leader, and working in this day and time, is that the money is certainly a marker and indicator of success. Yet there are so many other aspects, and I can give you a counter example to help continue to build on this point. For example, say that you are not necessarily, say that we don't want to do this to these people. Say you are, for this very simple, selling crack cocaine. Okay, we just put it like that. That we know that crack cocaine destroys lives, destroys community. Okay, so when you're making your money, okay, you actually are making money. Yet the impact that you're having with said widget, the crack, it actually
destroys.
Your clients are dying.
Mm-hmm.
Their families are destroyed.
Mm-hmm.
So that actually creates karmic implications for your path.
Yeah.
So even though you got the nice car, the nice house, your kids are in private school, you look nice, you may not only feel like shit, you may start to get sick. You may start to have your own problems. You get angry. You have people now starting to come at you and kill you. You're not understanding why. Then you're having the feds watching you.
Yeah.
You have to go to prison. So the actual quality of your life diminishes based on said widget.
You have to look over your shoulder all the time. You can't live in peace.
Yes. And so you have to begin to, as an enlightened leader, as a business leader, and this goes, and I use a very extreme example, but this goes for any kind of company that's not walking in an aligned way. And that's why the markets are terrible. That's why countries are just not doing well, because the intentionality and the purpose of the businesses that we've been operating to date are aligned with the wrong, not necessarily wrong, but just not the best intentions. And I would say not only not the best intentions, they're not serving humanity. They're not serving people.
Right.
They're solely focused on profits and money gain and not impact. So when you do not assess the impact, then actually you are leaving out a huge aspect, not only of your personal life, but the sustainability of your business. Yes. So I am so grateful, Shaud, that you brought that up, because that was a way to start to integrate what I'm doing more and more in my work, in terms of the wealth work, the meta business work, the wealth multiplier, and helping people to see that no matter what the money is looking like, if you're not aligning in your purpose, then it's not sustainable.
It's not sustainable. You
If
you could
yeah,
have great position and gains right now, but if it is not leading towards what you're actually looking to do, that's going to be temporary. It's going to be the one hit wonder effect. Like, you're going to be doing great in the moment,
in the
but
moment,
but you're going to fizzle out very quickly.
yes, yes. And this is what we're seeing in Hollywood. This is what we're seeing in celebrity culture. This is being played out in our political sphere. And I encourage all of you to keep watching.
Yeah.
Keep watching the demise, keep watching the downfall, and begin to say, how can I step back into my sovereignty? We're going back to the sovereignty piece. How can I begin to detach from this incredibly sophisticated and beautiful and alluring matrix that is deceiving me? How do I then begin to create a reality that's steeped in truth, based in truth, and aligned in truth? That is the enlightened leader's sovereign journey. Period. Come on now. I just got to end it right there. I got chills.
Yeah. That was it right there.
That was it right there.
Yeah.
So I just want you, Shaud, to briefly say to the audience, who you are, like where you're from. If people want to follow up with you and learn more about you and your journey, I want to give them a chance to.
So, I am a very multifaceted individual. I am Roshaud Mayes. A lot of people call me Shaud. My rap name is That Boy Shaud. My handle on Instagram is ThatBoyShaud. And that's pretty much Googleable. You can Google That Boy Shaud and all of my stuff comes up. I am a music artist. I am, as we talked about earlier, raw crystal and crystal jewelry creator. I am a producer, creative director, vegan chef.
Hey.
I coach children for sports. I do a lot of different things, and so I am just a person that is very creative, and I like to use that creativity in several different outlets. A lot of the things that I have done, I would have never imagined. They just were divinely presented to me, and I saw a way that I could add. That's all I do when in any industry or position that I go into, just try to add value.
I love it. I love it. And how can people find you? What's your handle?
My handle on
Instagram.
IG is That Boy Shaud, ThatBoyShaud.
Okay. All right, Shaud. So thank you so much. I was calling you Shaud. Was I calling you right? Was I calling your name right? I can't even
I
remember.
think so. Yeah,
Yeah.
Shaud.
Anyway, well, I just want to thank all of you all for your comments. The last comment was like, the road to hell can be paved with good intentions. Impact is key.
Oh man.
So I love that. Thank you
Yeah.
so much, Sinaja, for that word. And that's a great note to end it on. And I just want to encourage you all, if these conversations resonate with you, to continue to tune into the MetaBusiness Millennial. And of course, you can find more access to resources around MetaBusiness and my MetaBusiness work at my website, erinpatton.com. I do speaking, I do working with teams, organizations, specifically around leadership development and aligning teams towards a higher vision, aligned with amazing high values. And of course, the one-on-one coaching is the fastest way to accelerate your path to enlightened leadership. So I just thank you so much for tuning in. And until next week, next time, much love and light. Peace. Did you really love this episode of the MetaBusiness Millennial podcast? Well, I am honored, and I appreciate you subscribing, leaving a review, and sharing it with your friends, because your feedback allows us to co-create more enlightened conversations. And if you're interested in growing your soul now, head over to my website, erinpatton.com, to find all the show notes, links, and free resources to get your energy activated today. In the meantime, stay bright, my friends. Much love and light. Peace.